Hare Krishna, welcome everyone.
Hare Krishna, Dandvat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandvat Pranam, Jai
Hare
Shri
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for everyone for joining.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam.
Dandvat Pranam, Hare Krishna. So today we'll be doing the last class of the Nectar of Instruction, which is very timely because the next 2 weeks we won't have classes. Yeah, the next 2 weeks we will not have any class. And then we'll continue the following, so next 2 Saturdays, we won't have class, and then we'll continue the following on the 26th. So this way you can now have time to finish all the homework if you are behind, review it yourself, and then we'll do the Ishopanishad, and then we'll do both, the exam for both books, Nectar of Instruction and Ishopanishad, all at once after we complete both books. Okay. Sorry, one. So we start with the prayers to the spiritual master. Just share that here. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So last time you may remember we stopped about halfway through the middle of the Nectar of Instruction, verse 10. So I'll read this verse again and the translation. Karmibhya parito harer priyataya vyaktim yayurgyaninas tebhyo jnana vimukta bhakti parama premaika nisthastata tebhyastha pashupala pankajadrishas tabhyopi saradhika Prishtat tadvadiyam tadiya sarasi tam nashayet kakriti. In the Shastra, it is said that all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life, is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, jnanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental coward boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kunda lake is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radha Kund and in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, render loving service to the divine couple, Shri Shri Radha Govinda, who perform their Ashtakalya Leela, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of Radha Kund are the most fortunate people in the universe. So we were in the middle here. So Rupa Goswami has been talking about the different levels of devotees. And we were on this point of, after speaking about the karmis, then he speaks about the gyanis, and among the gyanis, the topmost gyani is that gyani who has understood that the ultimate goal, the samam bonam, is Krishna. Bahunam janmanamante gyanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam veti sa mahatma sudurlabha. So that is the highest gyani, the person who is in knowledge, is the person who has understood that the result of all knowledge is Krishna. Just yesterday, we were reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, beautiful verse, where it is being stated that by devotional service, one gains causeless knowledge and detachment from this world. So the result of knowledge, of true knowledge, is it inspires devotion or love for Krishna. And the result of bhakti is that one gets real knowledge, true knowledge. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. In the Shikshashtaka prayers, he says, Vidya Vadhu Jivanam, that by the chanting of Krishna's holy names, through his chanting, one gets knowledge. So devotional service or knowledge leads to devotional service, and that is a higher platform. When a jnani takes to devotional service, he becomes rapidly superior to an ordinary jnani. Such an advanced person is described as jnana vimukta bhakti parama. A person is wise when he surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna, but such a Mahatma, great soul, is very rare. So it's very rare to find a person like this, who is, we see that many people in India have devotion, and they are performing, going to the temple. Some are even living in places of pilgrimage, leading a very austere life, but they're not doing it on the basis of the process, meaning with knowledge. It's a little sentimental, and although it's very exalted, it sometimes does not lead one quickly to the ultimate goal. And we find many jnanis who are fixed in their knowledge, and they're just, absorbed in their knowledge, and that that being fixed in that knowledge is very nice, but they don't have that bhakti, that devotion. So when there's both things there, when the knowledge and devotion is both there, then it becomes perfect. And among the bhaktas, the prema bhaktas are the highest. Just on this previous point, therefore Prabhupada's name is Bhakti Vedanta. Both are there, Bhakti and Vedanta. Very important point. Because sometimes we see people have so much devotion, yet we don't follow them. Why? Because they don't have the Vedanta. Some people have so much knowledge, but they don't have devotion. So Prabhupada had the perfect Bhakti Vedanta, right? So among the devotees are the prema bhaktas, the pure devotees. After taking to devotional service under the regulated principles, a person may come to the platform of spontaneous love of Godhead, following in the footsteps of great devotees like Narada and Sanaka and Sanatana. So there's devotees are there, and the bhakta is higher than the jnani. But there's so many levels of devotees, so many types of devotees, some with motivation, other without motivation. Bhagavatam says that But what is the highest devotion? Savai punsang paro dharma yato bhakti radhosh shaje ahaitukya apratihata yayatma suprasidati. What is completely satisfying to the self, what is the highest form of devotion is when it's ahaituki and apratihata, when it is unmotivated and uninterrupted. That is the highest platform of love. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then recognizes him to be superior. The devotees who have developed love of Godhead are certainly in an exalted position. So, Prema Bhakta, Ahaituki Apratihata. Now, who remembers what is the definition of Prema Bhakti from the Nectar of Devotion? So some of you have taken that exam, and for some of you, this is your first book, so never mind. But some of you have taken the Nectar of Devotion. Who remembers what is the definition of Prema Bhakti? Well, let's begin with the definition of pure devotional service. What is the definition of pure devotional service? What verse comes to mind? Yes, please unmute, Rahul. Yes, very nice. A devotional service is anya bhilashata shunyam. So it is without any abhilashas, any motivations, yana karmadinavatam. It is free from any anartha, vestiges of jnana and karma. It is done for Krishna. It is activity done for Krishna. So that is the definition of pure devotional service. Now, does anyone remember the definition of prema bhakti? Probably not. It's a little technical. So I'll come back here to the slides of Nectar of Devotion, and I'll remind you. If anyone remembers in the meantime, please unmute and speak up.
Is it the spontaneous love for Krishna?
So that is Raganuga Bhakti. When it becomes this, the regulated Bhakti becomes spontaneous. That is a higher stage, but that's still within sadhana. And then here I will share here. 1 second. Excuse me. This was the definition of prema in the Nectar of Devotion. So that's why we see how the Nectar of Devotion is an expansion, or rather the Nectar of Instruction is a summary of the Nectar of Devotion. So samyan masnita svanto mamatvati shayantika bhavasa eva sandratma buddhai prema nigatyate. When that bhava softens the heart completely, one becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord, and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It is called prema, love of Godhead, by learned scholars. So what are the qualities? When bhava softens the heart completely. So in the stage of prema, the hardness of the heart is gone. It is completely soft. So bhava, the definition of bhava is when the heart starts to become soft. And so that is the stage when we chant, we feel tears of ecstasy, because the heart has become soft. It's not hard like iron. It is completely ready to receive Krishna Prema. And then when it completely softens, that is the stage of Krishna Prema. One becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord. So before Prema, the feeling is that I am the Lord's. I belong to Krishna. But in the stage of Prema, the affection is so intense that the feeling is that that I need that Krishna is mine. That is the feeling. So rather than I belong to Krishna, Krishna belongs to me. And this is Mother Yashoda's feeling. This is Nanda Baba's feeling. This is the feeling that the gopis possess towards Krishna. So a very high stage. And Prema is therefore very extraordinary. To come to this stage is very, very extraordinary. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that to come from the platform of just bhava to prema can take millions of lifetimes. It can take, it doesn't have to take, but it can take, because it's so rare, it's so intense, it's so deep. Of course, by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we can do it in one lifetime or a few lifetimes, because he is Mahavadanyaya, the most merciful, the most munificent, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But this is that bhava, right? So prema is very, very wonderful. Now let's come here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then recognizes him to be superior. The devotees who have developed love of Godhead are certainly in an exalted position. Now, among the Prema Bhaktas, the highest Prema Bhaktas are the gopis of Vrindavan. Of all these devotees, the gopis are recognized as superior because they do not know anything other than satisfying Krishna, nor do the gopis expect any return from Krishna. So they are superior to all the other Prema Bhaktas because their feeling of possessiveness of the Lord is the highest. There's nothing else in life that they have other than Krishna. And they don't expect anything else in return. Indeed, sometimes Krishna puts them into extreme suffering by separating himself from them. Nonetheless, they cannot forget Krishna. Their love is so strong that even when Krishna is absent, they are continuously in meditation. If we see Krishna's pastimes when he comes here, he stays with the gopis for only 13 years. And then after that, Krishna is on the planet for 125 years. The rest of the time, they are in viraha, in separation from Krishna. And this is why the highest form of bhakti, the highest form of prema bhakti is viraha bhakti, or love for Krishna in separation. Because this viraha bhakti, this love for Krishna in separation, is the main mood of prema that was tasted and experienced by the gopis. Love and union was there even when those 13 years when Krishna was there. Only sometimes they could see Krishna. Only in certain months they did the rasa dance, the Sharath season. Only sometimes they saw Krishna. But 99% of their life, they're in separation from Krishna. So they're showing by example that the highest form of love is viraha bhakti, love and separation. Because in that separation, in that intense separation, in the feeling of separation, there is union. The real meeting happens in separation. That is true meeting. When we meet someone, when we're meeting them, then we may be meeting or not meeting. We may be somewhere else. But when we meet them when we are anyway in separation, then that is true meeting, because we are separated anyway. So we have no reason to meet them. But if we're meeting them in separation, then that is true meeting. You see? See, when we are separated from Krishna, Krishna bhuliya ji bhoga vancha kare. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, when we are separated from Krishna, then out of sight, out of mind. That is material separation. So we are also in viraha, but there's no bhakti there. But when the gopis are separated from Krishna, then the effect is opposite. They become more attached to Krishna. And that's why they're on the highest level of prema bhakti. And among the gopis, Srila Rupa Goswami doesn't leave anything out. He says, among the gopis, who's the highest devotee? The topmost devotee, the devotee amongst devotees, that is Srimati Radharani. Out of all these exalted gopis, Srimati Radharani is the highest. No one can excel the devotional service of Srimati Radharani. So we must all know, we must all understand, Rupa Goswami is doing this to impress upon us the exalted position of Srimati Radharani. How exalted she is. Therefore, Prabhupada would get so disturbed when someone would try to cheapify the position of Srimati Radharani, or try to say Radharani's name without Krishna's name, or try to talk about the pastimes of Srimati Radharani immaturely. They say, who are we? This is, we have the sages, the yogis, the munis. I mean, we see actually Krishna has millions of devotees just on this earth, and unlimited number of devotees in his entire creation. There is no shortage of devotees who have such immense ecstasy and love for Krishna. And among them are the prema bhaktas. Among them are the gopis. And among them is one Srimati Radharani. So how can we even think about approaching her directly? Our only hope is to approach the servants of the servants of our spiritual master. Right? There's one very nice article in the in this magazine that some devotees produce. It's called by Madhavananda Prabhu produces it. The name is escaping me, but there's one magazine, and in that the title was "Servant of the Servant 1,000 Times Removed." And in that, they're making the point how we often think ourselves that I'm the servant, I'm not the master, I'm the servant of the servant. But we think that there's my spiritual master, and then I'm number two. So I'm the servant of the servant, but I have my spiritual master, and then I'm the next one. I'm his best disciple. But even that is not what Lord Chaitanya is saying. He's saying servant of the servant 1,000 times removed, that I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. And in that spirit, we understand our position in relation to Srimati Radharani. Of course, that is a mood, that is a feeling, but we all are very dear to the Lord, and so very close to the Lord and to the spiritual master. But this is the point, that how exalted Srimati Radharani is and how small we are. Indeed, even Krishna cannot understand the attitude of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, he took her position and appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to understand her transcendental feelings. So Krishna takes her position. How exalted she must be that Krishna wants to experience her position. But we can understand that in some way she is more exalted than Krishna because she never takes Krishna's position. She has no desire to take his position. So therefore, she must be so exalted. She must be so fortunate the love and happiness that she feels is higher than what Krishna feels, because she never has a desire to experience Krishna's happiness. Of course, Krishna is God, so Krishna is the supreme object of worship. So being the devotee, she would never want to. So in that way also, this is why Krishna wants to become his devotee, but the devotee never wants to be the Lord. But also just, one place this point is made, that how her feelings must be so exalted, because, Krishna wants to experience them. Okay, so this is about the different levels and stages of devotees. And we read these things to develop our hankering and our greed. To Rupa Goswami says, come, rise in our spiritual life, and ultimately one day come to the level of pure devotional service, pure bhakti. Because when we understand what the goal is, and we understand how great the goal is, then we will always feel happy. This is to increase our hankering, to realize our spiritual form. The spiritual body is a body that, by definition, Rupa Goswami is saying, is surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings. So when we hear this, then we say, well, why not? I get my spiritual body. And we should develop a hankering. We start to ask the question, why am I not advancing? Rather than asking so many other questions in this world. Why did he do this? Or why did she do this? Why is this? Why is that? We start to ask the question that why is it that I have not developed love for Krishna? Because this is the main problem that I have, the only problem that I have. And that becomes our number one concern. So therefore, Rupa Goswami says in this verse, he says, who will therefore not aspire to live on the banks of Radha Kund with a body surcharged, with a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic love? This is kind of the purpose or essence of this verse. And now we'll go on. This is a perfect segue to the last verse, which is about Sri Radha Kund. So once that hankering develops, we think, well, where should I live to develop, to advance? Or what consciousness should I have? And Rupa Goswami here was saying to stay on the banks of Radha Kund. But Radha Kund is so special, and it's such a big topic that he has only 11 verses, yet he is then dedicating yet another verse to this topic. See, if we go back here, 1 second, we see that verse 9, it talked about Radha Kund. In terms of the different holy places, it ended with Radha Kund. Verse number 10 talks about the devotees. But even in that verse, Rupa Goswami finds some way to bring in Radha Kund. He says, given that she is Krishna's closest devotee, who will not reside in her kunda? And now in text 11, he dedicates that entire verse to Sri Radha Kund. So 3 verses, he talks about Radha Kund. So Radha Kund is very important. Krishnasyochai pranaya vasati preyasibhyopi radha kundam chasya munibhir abhitastadhrik eva vyadhayi yat preshthar apyalam asulabham kim punar bhakti bhajam tat premedam sakridapi sara snatur avishkaroti. Of the many objects of favorite delight, and of all the lovable damsels of Rajabhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love. And in every respect, her divine kunda is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by the great devotees. Therefore, it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathes once within those holy waters, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. Once again, of the many objects of favored delight and of all the lovable dances of Rajabhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love. And in every respect, her divine kunda is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by the great devotees. Therefore, it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathes once within those holy waters, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. Purport. This is a very exalted, very high topic. So very difficult to speak about this topic. So best we will read Prabhupada's explanation and then make a few comments. Why is Radha Kund so exalted? The lake is so exalted because it belongs to Srimati Radharani, who is the most beloved object of Krishna, of Sri Krishna. Among all the gopis, she is the most beloved. Similarly, her lake, Sri Radha Kund, is also described by great sages as the lake that is as dear to Krishna as Radha herself. Indeed, Krishna's love for Radha Kund and Srimati Radharani is the same in all respects. Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by great personalities, fully engaged in devotional service, not to speak of ordinary devotees who are only engaged in the practice of Vaidhi Bhakti. It is stated that a devotee will at once develop pure love of Krishna in the wake of the gopis if he once takes a bath in Radha Kund. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends that even if one cannot live permanently on the banks of Radha Kund, he should at least take a bath in the lake as many times as possible. This is a most important item in the execution of devotional service. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in this connection that Sri Radha Kund is the most select place for those interested in advancing their devotional service in the wake of the lady friends, Sakhis, and confidential serving maids, Manjaris, of Srimati Radharani. Living entities who are eager to return home to the transcendental kingdom of God, Golok Vrindavan, by means of attaining their spiritual bodies, Siddha Deha, should live at Radha Kund, take shelter of the confidential serving maids of Sri Radha, and under their direction engage constantly in her service. This is the most exalted method for those engaged in devotional service under the protection of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this connection, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that even great sages and great devotees like Narada and Sanaka do not get an opportunity to come to Radha Kund to take their baths. What then to speak of ordinary devotees? If by great fortune one gets an opportunity to come to Radha Kund and bathe even once, he can develop his transcendental love for Krishna, exactly as the gopis did. It is also recommended that one should live on the banks of Radha Kund and should be absorbed in the loving service of the Lord. One should bathe there regularly and give up all material conceptions, taking shelter of Sri Radha and her assistant gopis. If one is thus constantly engaged during his lifetime, after giving up the body, he will return back to Godhead to serve Sri Radha in the same way as he contemplated during his life on the banks of Radha Kund. The conclusion is that to live on the banks of the Radha Kund and to bathe there daily constitute the highest perfection of devotional service. It is a difficult position to attain, even for the great sages and devotees like Narada. Thus, there is no limit to the glory of Sri Radha Kund. By serving Radha Kund, one can get an opportunity to become an assistant of Srimati Radharani under the eternal guidance of the gopis. So a few points here. We'll stop here and discuss this. That Krishna's love, Prabhupada says, is a very significant point, that Krishna's love for Radha Kund and Srimati Radharani is the same in all respects. So how can it be the same in all respects? If Radharani, one second, just if Radharani is Krishna's dearest devotee, it's the same because Radha Kund is non-different than Srimati Radharani. So it's Srimati Radharani's form in liquid form as a kunda. You see? Because otherwise, how could the love be the same? Just like if you love someone, then you also love what they possess. Right? If you love someone, then you'll also be respectful of their car, of their house. But still, your love for them is more than what they possess. But here Prabhupada says Krishna's love for Radha Kund and Srimati Radharani is the same in all respects. This is because Radha Kund is non-different than Srimati Radharani. That's the only way. Then secondly, he says, therefore, given that this is Srimati Radharani appearing in this world, one should live on the banks of Radha Kund. And if one cannot live there, then one should take a bath in the lake as many times as possible. So here Prabhupada is openly saying that we should bathe in Radha Kund as many times as possible. Now in ISKCON, we are advised not to bathe in Radha Kund. As you know, even our great stalwart devotees, the sannyasis, gurus, they don't go and bathe in Radha Kund. Most of them don't. So here Prabhupada is saying, and in another place, to devotees, Prabhupada said, don't bathe in Radha Kund. Well, if you go to Radha Kund, or just Prabhupada himself explained, they will tell you that if you take a few drops in your hand and you put it on your head, that is equivalent to bathing. That is the same as bathing. Bathing means to put water on your head, right? So if you take a few drops and you put it on your head, that's bathing. So on one hand, this is Srimati Radharani. On the other hand, we have to take bath to get purified. So how do we resolve these two things? Well, if it's Srimati Radharani, we cannot put our feet on her. We don't feel qualified to put our feet in Radha Kund. Therefore, we do not bathe. But we must bathe, and so therefore we take the water in our hand and we put it on our head. So this is bathing and also not bathing. Or this is bathing, but bathing in the respectful way. So devotees of the Lord, they will go and chant on the side of Radha Kund. Stay for some days on the side of Radha Kund. And in this way access this great opportunity. So this is one point. Now the next point is that it is stated that a devotee will at once develop pure love of Krishna in the wake of the gopis if he once takes a bath in Radha Kund. So if I take that water and I put it on my head, do I immediately develop love for Krishna? Later on, he describes, Prabhupada says that even sages like Sanaka, Sanatana, and Narada, he's a saint of bhakti, do not get the opportunity to bathe in Radha Kund. It is a difficult position, he says, even for them to attain. There's no limit to the glory of Radha Kund. They don't get the opportunity to bathe there. They don't get the opportunity to serve Radha Kund. So how is it that we can go there, and we've gone there so many times, many of us, and taken this drops of water on our head? when Narad Muni, he has this, transcendental Veena and this transcendental, jetpack behind him, and he can fly anywhere, travel anywhere in the world. He cannot travel to Radha Kund. He can go up to Vaikuntha. I can take a flight to Delhi and then drive to Radha Kund. And Narad Muni cannot come with his powers that he has and take a bath in Radha Kund. So how is it that Prabhupada here is saying that bathing in Radha Kund is difficult even for the great sages like Narad Muni? Anyone want to suggest?
Is it because you have to be in human body, human form to be able to bathe in Radha Kund?
No, no. Actually, in fact, the material body is not really suitable for bathing. But you're right. Human beings are bathing. Also, the animals are bathing. The Brajvasi dogs and the birds and things, they go and they take their bath in Radha Kund sometimes also. So yes. Yeah. Ranchor Prabhu, you want to go next?
Is it also maybe related to the fact that Narad Muni, like he's chanting Narayana, Narayana, he has more of an Aishwarya bhav, whereas in order to enter Radha Kund, it requires you to be in Vraj bhav, seeing Krishna as a cowherd boy, not as the all-opulent Narayana.
That's a very interesting point. So he does say Narayana, Narayana, right? We see that, but at the same time, he is a prema bhakta, because it's described how Narad Muni joins the rasa dance along with Lord Shiva. I think it's Mansarovar, where they both take a bath and they come out as gopis. So he is a very, Rupa Goswami in the Nectar Devotion says that Narad Muni is the saint of bhakti. So he knows everything that Rupa Goswami is saying. He is very, very confidential. He's also, some of his devotees like Dhruv Maharaj also are Narayana worshippers. But he himself, he's a Rasika Bhakta. Yashoda Vatsala Prabhu, did you want to suggest?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandat Pranam. Thank you so much. Actually, I was just thinking again, Srimati Radharani and Shri Krishna, they have a different relationship, and it's Srimati Radharani is the pleasure potency of Krishna. So something that Krishna enjoys, how we can enjoy as his devotees or servants. So that might be the bhava of these higher devotees like Narad Muni or others, that this is something for the pleasure of Krishna. How will I take that?
Okay. Yeah, no, this is also a true point.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I had Hare Krishna Prabhu. I had a point was that Narad Muni is in a different realm. He's a very big bhakta. I mean, so he is with the Lord always. 24 hours he's chanting. So when you are with the Lord, you needn't to go elsewhere to be there. Like go to the Radha Kund. It's needless going there. Because if you are staying with someone, it is not necessary where he visits you, you already go there every time. Because he's chanting every time 24 hours and he's into that. So probably what I feel is he is enjoying the same thing there while chanting. It's not required that he gets into a human body and visit Kund, because he's always being there. He's always present there. So probably I think this is a point which I can.
Yes, that's a very nice point. Very nice point, that he's already there. He's with Krishna. So he's with Srimati Radharani, Krishna, all these things. So what need does he have to go to Radha Kund and bathe in Radha Kund? Very good point. And that is very true. But at the same time, Prabhupada here is saying that they're aspiring. Sanaka, Sanatan, Narad Muni, they're endeavoring or aspiring, they're hoping to bathe in Radha Kund, but they don't get the opportunity. It's a difficult position to attain, even for great sages and devotees like Narada. And then another place, where was that? He says Sanaka, Sanatan, that they don't get the opportunity. So on one hand, he is such a great devotee and he doesn't he's always with Krishna, but at the same time he's aspiring, and Prabhupada is saying he's not getting the chance. So both things are true, like you're saying. Ashta Sakhi Charana Mataji. Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
I'm Ashik
Yes.
husband. So, Prabhuji, I don't have the understanding, but the whatever I learned based on that, it seems like taking bath in the Radha Kund does not mean the physical bath. Radha Kund is a Rasa Sarovar, and Sarovar, like enter in the fire, you have to be a fire kind of quality. So like Rasa Sarovar, we need to be like Rasamaya. So in order to be in Rasamaya, we have to be like constantly in the bhav of serving Radha Rani, just like Lord Krishna was desiring to serve Radha Rani.
Yes.
Which is impossible. That is impossible. And that's why it is impossible for anybody. But by the mercy of devotees, Guru, probably there is a rare chance.
Yes, very nicely said. That I was discussing last time, there's something to be on the dham rather than in the dham. Right? We can be there, but not actually enter into that place. Just like we were mentioning, the construction workers are also going there, the different living entities, the mosquitoes are also going there. Everyone is going there, but not everyone is actually entering. Why? Because Radha Kund is a Rasa Sarovar, like you're saying. It is the lake that is the lake of pure love for Krishna. And so to actually bathe in Radha Kund is very, very exalted. And that's why it says, you bathe even once, you get full love for Krishna. But bathing once is not ordinary. When we are bathing on Radha Kund. We are not bathing in Radha Kund. When we are bathing, and we're getting immense benefit from bathing. Immense benefit from putting, that's why we go there. But still, it is not actually bathing in Radha Kund, because Radha Kund is not being revealed to us. That bathing, when we actually bathe, is of a different nature. And this is why it said, even great sages like Narada find it difficult to attain that opportunity, that good fortune to bathe in Sri Radha Kund and to live on the banks of Radha Kund and to serve Krishna and Radha Rani, to serve the Radha Kund, to serve this Kunda. To serve Radha Kund, one has to become an assistant of Srimati Radharani under the eternal guidance of the gopis. But by serving Radha Kund, one also attains to this stage. So what it is that gradually we are removing the shell that is stopping us from accessing Krishna, right? So we are sweeping the banks of Radha Kund. Now we are not experiencing the full Radha Kund, but by sweeping, we are gradually shaving off the layers and layers of covering on ourselves, on our soul, that is not allowing us to actually see and access Radha Kund. You see, so it's like when you have a fire and it's covered by a thick layer of smoke, you cannot see the fire, but you feel the heat. You see the glimmers of the fire. And as you remove the smoke, you see it more and more. So the same thing, we go and we bathe in Radha Kund. That is, we put drops of water on our head. The smoke is very thick. It's about 5 million miles thick, that smoke. And therefore, we are just feeling a little bit of the heat, some glimmers of light through that, 5 million mile thick layer of smoke. But gradually, by removing that smoke, we're coming closer and closer and closer. And then one day we will see the actual fire. So it's not either or. People say, oh, so that means I'm not in touch with Radha Kund. No. It's not either or. It's gradual, right? We are experiencing a little bit, 1%, 2%, 3%. We are coming closer and closer. But it's not the full thing until we're fully there. So this is why Prabhupada, he said, when we go to Vrindavan Dham, he said the whole spiritual world, he says, is within the 4 walls of the Krishna Balaram temple. This is why even when great souls, they're there, they stay and they're worshiping the Lord, and they're not exactly living on the banks of Radha Kund. Why? Because we have to be qualified also by serving the pure devotees of the Lord, by getting the mercy of the devotee, of the Vaishnava, by getting the mercy of the holy name, by getting the mercy of the Dham, by accessing the spiritual world through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that he's given freely, that he's given us that place there where we actually experience, and anyone who's been there knows this, you get spiritual experiences. Then Radha Kund is revealed to us through those channels. So we should not rush, but rather we should keep the goal in mind and work towards it. Just like by being on the altar, one is directly in connection with Krishna. If one embraces the deity in the altar, one embraces Krishna, because the deity is non-different than Krishna. This is a really good example. Krishna and the deity are non-different. So if we embrace the deity, we're embracing Krishna. But that doesn't mean that we run on the altar and embrace Krishna, right? That now, okay, Krishna is non-different than the deity, and the deity non-different than Krishna. So all the devotees, the moment the curtains open, they jump on the altar and they go and they embrace Radha and Krishna. No, why? Because that is not the way. We will be thinking that we are embracing stone. That is the thing, but we know, oh, there's a process. I must take first initiation. I must take second initiation. I must, chant the holy name. Then I can be on the altar and serve. And then as I serve, then one day Krishna will reveal his presence there. And then one day I'll become more closer to Krishna. And then one day, finally, like Lord Chaitanya, I can understand that Lord Jagannath is non-different than Krishna. And by seeing Lord Jagannath, I'll fall down in ecstasy. So yes, the principle is we should all go on the altar, but in order to go to the altar, we know that there's a process. Otherwise, even though we're there, it's not going to work. Even though we're there, we're not going to get that mercy. We're not going to access it. In the same way as Radha Kund, we can think of it almost like a deity. It's fully there. Srimati Radharani is fully there. But we have to prepare ourselves to access that mercy. So such a short purport, but so powerful. So I'm going to just finish the slides, which I have 3 or 4 slides on Radha Kund, and then we will have question and answer, and then we will be done. So here, okay. Just as Srimati Radharani is dear to the Supreme Lord Krishna, so her bathing place, Radha Kund, is equally dear to Krishna. This is an actual picture of Radha Kund of many years ago, before Vrindavan was more built up. You can see Vrindavan is hiding more and more as it becomes more and more built up. The lake is so exalted because it belongs to Srimati Radharani, who is the most beloved object of Sri Krishna. Among all the gopis, she is the most beloved. So it's non-different. It belongs to her. It's non-different than her. Similarly, her lake, Sri Radha Kund, is also described by great sages as a lake that is as dear to Krishna as Radha herself. Indeed, Krishna's love for Radha Kund and Srimati Radharani is the same in all respects, which we discussed. It is recommended that one should live on the banks of Radha Kund and should be absorbed in loving service and should be absorbed in the loving service of the Lord. One should bathe there regularly and give up all material conceptions, taking shelter of Sri Radha and her assistant gopis. So we take shelter of Sri Radha and her assistant gopis by taking shelter of the pure devotee who is an assistant of the gopis. And this is every morning in our Sansara Dava prayers, this is why we sing Shri Radhika Madhava Yorapara Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna, which that song is saying that the spiritual master, and particularly we're singing it for Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada, they are the assistants of Shri Radhika and Madhava, because they know everything about their Madhurya Leelas. So how do we take shelter of Radha Kund? By taking shelter of the assistance of Radharani. And this is why every devotee in the ISKCON movement is actually closer to Radha Kund than we think. Because every devotee that's helping Srila Prabhupada's movement is taking shelter of the assistance of Srimati Radharani, and therefore is taking shelter of Radha Kund. How powerful is this process? Because one thing is clear, that Srila Prabhupada is for sure an assistant of Srimati Radharani. He showed all the symptoms of it. It was, he himself is explaining all these things. He had full realization of these things. So by helping in the mercy movement, in helping in Lord Chaitanya's movement, Lord Chaitanya is non-different than Srimati Radharani. We are assisting Srimati Radharani. And that is how we become close to Radha Kund. And this is why Prabhupada told his devotees, serve, preach Krishna consciousness, distribute books, help expand the movement. And he didn't tell them, you just go and live on the bank of Radha Kund like a Babaji. Why? Because this is real taking shelter of Radha Kund. This is why he told them to do it, to be active preachers, to be active devotees. Because that's true service. When we're sitting on the banks of Radha Kund, chanting, we may be doing service because we may be chanting. But if we become distracted, then we will be in Maya. We are not doing any service there. We're not sacrificing for Krishna and absorbed in Krishna. We'll be absorbed in how to make our, make our necessities and how to make a comfortable situation. And we may become critical of the Vrajavasis. We may do offenses there, and in such a sacred place, if we do offenses, we fall down because our heart is not fully purified. We have to first develop the service mood and purify the heart completely and be an assistant to the assistance of Radharani. Then we will be able to be there and absorb our mind in the loving service of Krishna. Otherwise, we will just become sense enjoyers while living in Radha Kund. And you see this. There's people who are living in Radha Kund and they are practicing prostitution. They're living on the banks of Radha Kund and they're smoking intoxicants. They're taking intoxicants. They're doing all types of sinful activities. So just by being in that place, one doesn't automatically become a pure devotee. But by doing Prabhupada's process, we can become a pure devotee. If one is thus constantly engaged during his lifetime, after giving up the body, he will return back to Godhead to serve Sri Radha in the same way as he has contemplated during his life on the banks of Radha Kund. Prabhupada here says such a nice point, that this is a contemplation in the same way that we are contemplating in this life. And as we advance, one day when we retire, or you can say not retire, mature in our Krishna consciousness, we will go to Radha Kund and do chanting there. And however we contemplate our service right now, and there, that is what we will attain after death. The conclusion is that to live on the banks of Radha Kund and to bathe there daily constitute the highest perfection of devotional service. So living on the banks of Radha Kund and bathing there daily constitute the highest perfection of devotional service. But we have to see, are we qualified to practice the highest perfection of devotional service? Just like sannyas is the highest order of spiritual life, but are we qualified to take sannyas? Just like worshiping the Lord on the altar is the highest, not the highest necessarily, but it is the intimate way of serving Krishna. So it is true it's the highest, but then why don't we do it? Because we have to be qualified to come to that stage. Living entities who are eager to return home to the transcendental kingdom of God, Golok Vrindavan, by means of attaining their spiritual bodies, Siddha Deha, should live at Radha Kund, take shelter of the confidential serving maids of Sri Radha, and under their direction engage constantly in her service. So Siddha Deha is one's eternal spiritual body. So if someone wants that, one should live there, one should serve Radha and Krishna. At the same time, there's many sahaja groups there. Sahajas means people who make the process cheap, who practice what they call a form of Siddha Pranali, where they artificially imagine what their Siddha Deha is. And they try to serve Krishna in their imagined role. So we must also be aware of the real thing as opposed to the false thing, and not to go to Radha Kund and become one of the sahajas there. Sahaja means, literally sahaja means one who takes something that is very exalted and makes it cheap, one who cheapifies things. So when we take something that is very exalted and immaturely and artificially make it into something cheap, oh, you are actually Krishna's, mridanga player, and you are actually, one of the flowers, and we give people these roles, but we don't actually have the realization, then that is called sahaja. So this is a nice rhyme here. Of all the worlds, Radha Kunda is most blessed. Karmis to bhaktas, her prema is best. Serve her and her kunda, Lord Krishna you'll meet. So we should be serving Krishna always in the mood of following in the footsteps of Srimati Radharani and meditating upon Radha Kund, praying to one day attain access to that Kund, genuine access, praying never to become a sahaja or a false pretender, but wanting to be rather a genuine servant of the servant of Lord Krishna's devotees. So stop here. Any comments, questions? Okay, Gopal Govinda Prabhu, is your hand up from before, or do you have a comment to make or question? Okay, I think it's from before. Ranchor Prabhu, you can go next.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class. So I just like to clarify, in similar lines with the example you gave about deity worship, how we don't run up to the altar and just embrace Krishna, because they won't give the same benefit if we don't have the right consciousnness. But just for any process, either chanting the whole, realizing Krishna's glories are not different than him, Krishna's name is not different than him. The process is to engage it, even though we understand we're not engaging at the highest level. For just by engaging it without offenses and sincerely, we purify ourselves. Something similar along the logic of what's Nectar of Instruction verse 7, but just applying to all the other forms of bhakti. That's how we get to the stage of the aesthetic stage of serving Radha and Krishna, the spiritual world. We just do the more basic stuff, but we do it with sincerity, and then it gradually purifies it to that. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, so I may have misspoken. It's not that if we go and embrace Krishna on the altar, we get no benefit, but rather the point is that in order to come to that stage, like Lord Chaitanya did, there's a process to reach that stage so that we can get the true benefit, right? So any contact with Krishna helps. In the same way, going to Radha Kund and just staying there for a few days, we get benefit. But if we stay there too long, Prabhupada said, we can also fall down due to making offenses, due to being unqualified in doing that, we fall down. So going on the altar and embracing Krishna, is also an offense, because we're engaging in a very exalted activity, not in the proper way. Now, chanting the holy name is available to everyone. So that also is a process. And in that process, that is something that we should do. Even if we are bathing in the toilet, we should always be chanting, because that is a process that gives us the full benefit. So certain activities of devotional life, we can do at any stage, any level, and at any time, and we get a spiritual benefit. Other activities we have to do under the guidance of advanced devotees. But even the chanting of the holy name, right? When we take it from the spiritual master, when we receive it through the Harinam Diksha, it has more effect. So even there's a process to fully gain the benefit of that chanting. So, and that's the verse of the Nectar of Devotion. Utpatayeva kalpate. That when devotional service is done without the guidance of the Shastra and the Sadhu, then that same devotional service can become a disturbance to society, and it's not beneficial. So, but if it's done in that guidance, then it's very effective. Yes. Thank you. Rajiv Prabhu? Rajiv Sham Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for such a wonderful session. So I think maybe I did not understand it fully. So the portion where Prabhupada says about Narad Muni and Sanaka Sanatan rishis, they aren't able to bathe in Radha Kunda is because of the smoke and the fire example that you gave. Is that the reason?
Yes, because I mean, of course, in their case, it's more of a way of saying, right? Just like you may say that this place or person is so exalted that even great souls have difficulty reaching them. Now, of course, these great souls, I'm sure they can bathe. But the point is, just like the Bhagavatam says, that even the demigods like Lord Shiva and the sages are unable to attain the same feelings and devotion as Mother Yashoda has. Now, that's completely true, but it's also the fact that it's glorifying Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna. In the same way, Narad Muni, I'm sure, can bathe anytime, but it's glorifying Radha Kund by saying that even he is aspiring for it. The point is that even those great souls know that to actually bathe in Radha Kund is not easy. They're aspiring for it. Now, they can actually do it, but that's the Leela that it's they're showing by their example that how difficult it is. Yes, like Srila Prabhupada, he could bathe anytime, but one could say that even he aspires to bathe, because it's not easy. It's not an ordinary thing. It's not. But of course, a devotee is, when they're pure devotee of the Lord, Krishna immediately fulfills any desire that they have. So their reason for not being able to, for the pure liberated devotee, is not the smoke and fire reason, like you're saying. It's not, because they're not under any illusion. They're not in Maya. The smoke is like the Maya screen for us, that is keeping us, that is protecting the Dham from us. But in their case, it's just that it's so exalted, it's a struggle, just like it's a struggle for them to see Radha and Krishna in the kunjas, because it's very confidential. But of course, if they have the desire, Krishna immediately fulfills it. But out of Leela, devotees may not be able to see it, because that's the viraha, that's the separation, that's the longing that's being expressed.
Got it. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. A nice point. Thank you. Rajesh Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Anand Praman, please accept my obeisances. It's a very wonderful lesson. I have a question to clarify on the definition of prema, Prabhu. When bhava softens the heart completely, one becomes endowed with great feeling of possessiveness in relationship to Lord. Could you explain that possessiveness in relationship to Lord?
Yes. Very nice. So at that stage, there's so much spontaneous love for Krishna that these particular devotees, they are absorbed in their service to Krishna, right? In complete love. So they're so absorbed in their service, not out of pride, but so absorbed in their service that they're feeling that if I don't do this service for Krishna, then Krishna, what will happen? And the most wonderful example of this is Mother Yashoda. She has a feeling of possessiveness for Krishna, that Krishna is my child. And if I don't discipline him, he'll grow up to be a misbehaved man, young man. So therefore, I must teach him a lesson. She doesn't want to, because she's in so much love for Krishna. But she says, I must tie him up. Because if I don't, he's my child. What will happen to him? In the same way, the gopis feel that Krishna belongs to us. If he's unable to see us, Krishna will feel so unhappy. This is why actually, because they're selfless. So why would they be selfish? That they say, oh, I must dance with Krishna. No, they feel that if we don't dance with Krishna, then who will give Krishna happiness? Who will give him happiness? Who will dance with him? There's no one else to dance with him. The cows don't dance with him. Mother Yashoda cannot dance with him. The cowherd boys cannot dance with him. We can dance with him only. So they have a feeling of possessiveness. The cowherd boys, they feel Krishna is our friend. And we must help him when he's fighting with these demons. We must protect him. Like Krishna's lifting Govardhan Hill, and the cowherd boys are thinking, they're putting their sticks up there to give Krishna support, because he's our friend and we must support him by putting sticks. So in this mood, one forgets that Krishna is God. But it's not just that one forgets. The point is that even if one remembers, one's love is so strong that one thinks that Krishna needs my help. So like Vasudeva and Devaki, right? Vasudeva, he sees first Vishnu coming in front of him. And in front of his eyes, that Vishnu turns into Krishna. Yet, when they're seeing four-armed Vishnu, Devaki, Mother Devaki, Lord Vishnu asks Mother Devaki, ask me something. Devaki asks Lord Vishnu, he says, please turn into a small child. Because otherwise, if Kansa sees you as Lord Vishnu, and there he's holding a club and a disc, right? If Kansa sees you as Lord Vishnu, he may kill you. So if you turn into a small child, we can hide you and we can take you away. So that's the feeling of possessiveness. They are understanding that he's God. But the feeling of love is so strong that they feel that the Lord needs my help. That I must serve him in this way. I have to serve him. That is spontaneous devotion. They forget that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, even though they're aware that he is. Even though they may be aware that he is. And sometimes they completely forget.
So, Prabhu, one last thing. What is that feeling of possessiveness in the common people like us, like as a devotees?
So that is the stage of prema. You see, so we are not on that stage. We're on the stage that Krishna, please protect me. Krishna, I belong to you. I'm surrendered to you. But in the level of spontaneous love, the reciprocation is so sweet that that is there. Just like Atul Prabhu was saying, that these devotees are always with Krishna. Their level is so high that the emotions are deepening. They're with Krishna for eternity, right? So over time, it becomes more and more sweet and affectionate. And for us, it's almost beyond imagination. Their intimate relationship.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Rupa Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you for a wonderful class. I'm really enjoying this, although I'm a devotee for a long time, and feel like I just joined in ISKCON today, and this is a really good thing, I actually attending. Prabhu, I have one confusion in these things. Not the class, I'm sorry, a general. When the devotees and the what do you call disciples, like you says, the devotees has to be humble and learn good, So when the devotees and the disciples comes and they have to be together and decided things and move forward, things. One thing I get confused, there is so much, interruptions, like we cannot do this or conflict or, many things. And that time really disturbed, to myself, I'm not sure others, but disturb myself. Why do I join in it? Is Krishna consciousness? Why do I have a guru? And if I am not sacrificing for this, what is the purpose is to be a devotee? Correct. So in that moment, I get very confused and I get very, hopeless. And how do I, control that? How do I, observe that thing?
Very nice. Such a nice point. So that's the thing. We read so much about pure love for Krishna and this wonderful exalted philosophy. And then you're mentioning, but then when we see the devotees, we see that there's so many problems, so many, conflicts, this and that. So Prabhupada actually explained this very nicely. He said that this process and Krishna consciousness is a hospital. It's curing us of the material disease. This Rupa Goswami was saying, right? We all have jaundice. It's curing us of the material disease. Now, if we go in the hospital and we see sick people, then should we be surprised? Some people in the hospital are the nurses and doctors, are helping others, but the majority of the people are the patients and they are sick. That's why they're in the hospital. So like we were reading, the goal is that in our next life or at the end of our life, we will attain this spontaneous pure love for Radha and Krishna. But in order to get there, it's going to take a process of anartha nivritti, where a process of purification, removal of the anarthas, the problems in our spiritual path. And that's going to cause conflicts, that's going to cause this and that. But if we keep to the spiritual path, right? If we keep serving, if we keep chanting, if we keep assisting the servants of the gopis, who's Srila Prabhupada, then gradually we get purified. And the main thing is that I get purified. Others may or may not, but I will get purified, where these things will not bother me. The pure devotees are also living in a world of conflict, right? When Prabhupada was here, there's also conflict. They're also living in a world of problems, of imperfections, of disease, of false teachers, of pretenders, of not true devotees. But they're living in that same world, but they're able to transcend it. How are they able to transcend it? How are they able to uplift others around them? Because they have imbibed this. So we have to become the pure devotee. And we often become that pure devotee by attempting to serve with devotees, seeing our own faults come out, seeing, accepting correction, chastisement, and still going on in our service. And in this way, exemplifying humility. So we become purified by serving with devotees, and they reveal our faults. When we serve with others, then our shortcomings become revealed. And if we accept those, and if we accept that kind of painful purification, then we become purified. Prabhupada gave the example, if you put many rocks in a bag, and those rocks have sharp edges, and you shake that, and you keep those rocks in that bag and keep shaking them, then eventually they soften. By rubbing against each other, they soften. In the same way, if we stay in this movement and we do the process, not just shaking, but also do the process, then in the process and in that association, we will eventually become soft. But it takes some time. And that period is a little difficult. That's the stage of anartha nivritti, the stage of purification.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was a nice explain.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we will stop at this point. It's 8:30, and please complete the homework. So for the next 2 weeks, I'll be traveling. My Guru Maharaj is coming to the USA, and I won't be in town or available to do this. So it's nice that we completed this book. We'll take 2 weeks break, and after that we will recontinue like normal with the next book. So by this time, make sure that you're completely up to date. And then you'll start the next book, Ishopanishad. I posted all the homework questions. And then after these 2 small books, then you get the exam. So do it enough that you're ready for the exam. Because then we have 1 more small book, and then you take the exam on both books.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Dhanavad pranam.
Thank you. Dandavad
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna.